Here's Brody Brazil.
I truly think that across the next several years, one of the biggest and most important terms you're going to hear surrounding baseball are these two words: competitive balance. Well, actually, it's more like competitive imbalance, because there are teams like the Dodgers and Yankees and Mets and Padres spending $300+ million per season to field their team, while others like the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Athletics, or the Cincinnati Reds are hardly spending anything at all in comparison. Baseball is so imbalanced right now in what the teams are spending. Now, it's not to say that baseball is totally screwed up, but I do feel like the lack of a competitive balance is their most pressing issue right now. Baseball has done some good things. They've already started to address that epidemic of pitcher arm and elbow injuries. They're letting players show more personality with the custom cleats and gloves of any color and bats of any design. They've made rule changes, baseball has, that even 10 years ago they never would have done. A pitch timer? Are you kidding me? A designated hitter in the National League? These are things that baseball would not have even considered 15, 20 years ago, but now they've done them in the best interest of the game. However, there are some bad things that go along with what baseball has been doing. Number one, the trend of using relocation as a threat for the lack of public subsidies. If we don't get the money from the county or the city to help us build this new stadium, we'll just move. Baseball teams are doing that at a way too frequent clip lately. It's that threat, it's that trend of a threat that has become prominent with a lot of teams across the landscape. That's not great. Baseball's also had regional and national television deals start to evaporate. Now, some of that is in their control and the deals they make and don't make and the negotiations they have and don't have, but ESPN leaving and opting out for the final 3 years, that alone is not great, let alone all those teams, about 11 of them, that took a lot less money to negotiate with Bally Sports for their regional sports television deals. But yeah, last but not least here, this growing competitive imbalance of what the most spending teams are spending and what the least spending teams are spending. Now, you understand that different pro sports across North America, these big four, the major four, they all have different salary structures, but baseball is kind of alone in that it doesn't really have the same limitations at the top of spending and obviously at the bottom of spending. In the NFL, there's a hard salary cap and there's a floor. And there is a lot of flexibility for reserves, and obviously the 53-man roster is a little bit different from injured players or the practice squad, but there's kind of a hard cap, and as you'll see, most of the teams are spending within a pretty finite window. The NBA, they have a soft cap, which, by the way, almost everybody exceeds. Soft cap meaning that it's not, it's not a ceiling that you can't go through. You can go through that cap, you just have to pay some luxury tax as part of it. But the floor, the salary cap floor, is set at 90%. And some teams are right there at the 90% mark, but most teams are above that. Most teams are above 100%, so they're all paying a little bit of luxury tax. Baseball has this. It is kind of a soft cap, but it's more like a payroll threshold. If you go across the threshold of what you're allowed to pay per team, then you pay that competitive balance tax that the less spending teams, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Athletics, the Cincinnati Reds, they get some of that money because they didn't spend enough, and now they're supposed to take that money and go turn it around and spend it on their players. More on that in just a second. The NHL is the most unique here in that they have a hard salary cap and they have a hard salary floor. Those are just established figures. There's a high number and a low number, and you got to spend somewhere in between. In fact, a lot of teams, well, I shouldn't say a lot of teams, a few teams, more than you'd like to know over the years, they've had trouble just getting to the salary cap floor. Usually it was the Arizona Coyotes, who are now the Utah Hockey Club, but I digress. Take a look at this. Soak this in for just a second. I'll have it here up on the screen for a while so you can really get to understanding this. In the NFL, these are the last season salaries. So the last football season, right? 2024 into 2025 for the Super Bowl. But the 2024 football season, the highest spending team were the Browns, $246.4 million. This is, by the way, the active roster, the 53-man roster, plus all the reserves. The lowest spending team was Tampa Bay at $147. The median team was $214. So the median team was only about $30 million spending less on their payroll than the highest spending team. So it's a very tight window. The differential here, I'm saying, is 1.67. as in the highest spending team only spent 1.67 times the lowest spending team, right? So that's what we'll do here for all the sports. In the NBA, the Warriors spent the most, the Pistons spent the least. The median was right around 160. That's only $40 million less than the top spending team. The differential in the NBA, okay, 2.45. The highest spending team spent 2.45 times the lowest spending team. Then we get into Major League Baseball. The highest spending team of last baseball season, the New York Metropolitans, $317.4 million is what they spent. The lowest spending team were the Oakland Athletics in their final year of Oakland, $62.1 million. The median is actually about half the highest, less than half the highest, but it's not 30 or 40 million away. It's like more than $100 million away. So the highest team is way up there, and the lowest team is also $100 million plus away from the median. The differential in spending last year in Major League Baseball between the highest spending team and the lowest spending team was 5.1 times the lowest spending team. 5.1. Look at the numbers. 1.67, 2.45, and I'll just start to give you the heads up on the NHL. It's at 2.02. This is the biggest problem for baseball. The fact that the delta between the highest spending team and the lowest spending team is so darn much. 5.1 times the lowest spending team is what the highest spending team does for their payroll. In the NHL, by the way, hard cap, $86.1 million. That's what the Maple Leafs spent last season, not this current one, but the prior one. The lowest spending team last year were the Coyotes in their final season, $42.5 million. Isn't that interesting? Before they moved, they were the lowest, and before they moved, they were the lowest. There's something to that, isn't there? The median was 77, so very close to the highest spending team, but it's that window. And the differential in the NFL, only 2.02 times the lowest spending team to get to the highest spending team. And no surprise, the hockey capital of the world, Toronto, was the highest spending team. So there you go. This is a report from CNBC.com on Major League Baseball. The delta, like I said before, the difference in spending between MLB's highest spending teams and the lowest spending has reached an all-time high. This season, the New York Mets are spending $323 million on players, by the way. They're talking about this year now, 2025. So the Mets spending $323. The Miami Marlins are paying just over $67 million. There are 9 teams spending more than $200 million on players in 2025, and I'm fine with that. But there are also 5 spending less than $100 million, according to MLB calculations obtained by USA Today. When including the league's luxury tax, or that competitive balance tax, the Los Angeles Dodgers will spend more than $500 million this year, a record amount given the value of their contracts this year, which include deferred payments. The Mets will also pay more than $400 million. It's a little bit different than $67 million or $72 million. This from Travis Sawchik of thescore.ca. Travis covers baseball north of the border. Travis, in one of his recent pieces, says this: "There's no doubt the Dodgers are playing a different financial game, but I believe MLB's primary problem is its bottom feeders. That's a key, perhaps the key, to address. Consider that on August 1st of last year, there were 12 teams with less than a 10% chance of reaching the playoffs and 8 with less than a 1% chance, according to Fangraphs. 8, right? So we're talking about salaries a second ago. Now we're talking about August 1st. Why August 1st? Well, right around the trade deadline, but with 2 full months left in your season. Basically, Travis trying to point out here that 12 teams had already waved the white flag. They're totally out of competition. They're not going to the playoffs. And I'll bet if you do the cross-evaluation on this, most of these 12 teams were also some of the lowest payroll teams at the very same time, right? So not spending. League doesn't have a lot of parity. There's the haves, there's the have-nots, there's the teams that are in the playoff hunt, and there's a lot of teams by August 1st who are already out of it. But this has been a trend. August 1st, 2023, according to Travis, 9 teams had less than a 10% postseason chance, and 8, again, had less than a 1% chance. August 1st of 2022, 13 teams with less than a 10% chance at the postseason, And 12 teams that year had chances under 1%. And as Travis points out, this is in the expanded playoff era, where there's not just a wildcard team or 2 wildcard teams, but 3 wildcard teams per division. And again, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that paying more automatically earns you a spot in the playoffs, but you can tell here there are teams that are in it to compete. There's a bunch that are totally out of it with 2 months left to play in their regular season. I'm actually going to bring it to this current hockey season. Just a handful of weeks ago, almost a month and a half ago, March 1st, 2025, in the National Hockey League. So about 6 weeks left in the regular season. The NHL has 32 teams. Of the 32 teams with 6 weeks left to go, 25 were either in current playoff position or only 5 points out of a playoff position. 16 of 32 in the NHL qualify. I realize it's a ton of teams that qualify for the playoffs in the NHL, but look at those numbers. Look at this parity. Look at a league that has a hard salary cap and floor, and look how all the teams end up by nearly the end of their regular season. It's interesting. It's competitive. There's only a small amount of teams that are totally out of it with 6 weeks left to play versus baseball, where so many teams are out of it at the end. But as Rob Manfred even points out here in one of his quotes, so many teams that feel like on opening day, they know their team is not paying their players a bunch. They're not trying to go out and get new players. They're not trying to be in the hunt. It feels like some of these small market teams never even had a chance. Here's Rob Manfred to Colin Cowherd on FS1. Quote, "We do hear a lot about it from fans, particularly in the smaller markets. But the reality is we're 2 years away from the end of the CBA, the current collective bargaining agreement. We're just not in a position where we're talking about or have made decisions about what's next, what's ahead in the next round of bargaining as it relates to a potential salary cap, hard one, or a salary floor. I think that a lot of water is going to go over the dam before we need to deal with that issue." Oh, but it's coming quick, Commissioner Rob Manfred. Here's another quote to the New York Times. Quote, "I'm really cognizant of it, the lack of competitive balance in baseball. And I'm sympathetic to fans in smaller markets who go into the season feeling like they don't have a chance in the world to win. I think our game turns on fans having hope when you enter the season, right? So fans are just a lot more excited. It turns them on to know, hey, we've got a chance to start off this season versus some teams, smaller markets, lesser spending. What chance do we have in all of this? What chance do we even have to keep our players? I think it's a really important issue that we need to pay attention to. And I certainly agree with that. The haves and the have-nots, there's also a geographical connection there. You look at some of the bigger cities. There's not a baseball team in New York that's not spending, but there is one in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Cincinnati, Ohio, and West Sacramento, California. These things are all not the same. So here are my takeaways. Spending the least is actually the bigger problem here, more than spending the most. And I understand that the focus and even the thumbnail of this video, right, is Shohei Ohtani, but it's not the teams that are spending the most, it's the teams that are spending the fewest. Granted, the teams spending the most are just making the other ones look bad. They're running, the teams spending the most are sprinting, and the teams spending the least, they're kind of not even power walking. They're at a slow saunter. But let me shift the focus and the narrative on all this. It's not the team spending the most. It's the teams inherently and repeatedly spending the least. When are they ever going to go in and commit? Because look, you can win without spending. If you're a bad team for long enough, good draft picks, you make some right baseball decisions, you'll get young players and you'll have control over those players' contracts with arbitration years for a very long time. But then you realize that your team control on them is running out and they will eventually hit free agency and you will not be able to keep them because the Yankees and Dodgers and Mets are going to pay them more and the Cubs are going to pay them more. So you can win for a while without having to pay greatly for it, but you can never sustain winning because you either didn't import the right players and the good players or you didn't keep your good players and pay them more. You can't sustain without spending. You can win without spending, but you can't sustain without spending. Also teams might use an excuse of, well, we lost $20 million last year. We lost $40 million last year. We lost whatever last year. Yes, you did. Teams are always, though, making money in terms of their total valuation, even if they are losing on a year-to-year basis on operating expenses or the payroll or whatever. If you've ever owned a home, you know how this goes. Your home never makes you money, typically. You're spending money on your home. You need a new water heater, got to put that in. You need hot water, need a new dishwasher, got to put that in. Part of your roof fell off, you need to re-roof your whole house. Those are things that happen. Ask me how I know. But you don't make money off your home. However, what you do make is the value of it going up. Now, I can't sell 20% of my house, but somebody could now sell 20% of their baseball team and get a little bit of liquid cash flow coming back in. Now, they don't own the entire team anymore, but that's the point. You still have that flexibility in baseball to get some money back. And while valuations are going up, that's where you own a team and make money in the valuations. It's kind of like real estate. You're playing the long game with this. Year to year, you might lose money. Like I said, my house, not making me any money this year, only losing money. But over time, you would hope the value goes up of your team, your home, whatever, and that's where the gains happen. Last but not least here, I think this is obvious. Parity, not P-A-R-O-D-Y, not a parity, but parity. That should be a goal of Major League Baseball. They should be doing whatever they can to try and have that competitive balance. If you don't have competitive balance in your league, what do you have? You have the haves and have-nots, which is where this has been going for the last, especially 5, 6, 7 years. Some teams spending whoop, other teams going spending less and less, and never being held accountable for it. So I think the solution to all of this, let's forget the salary cap talk. It should just be about a salary floor talk. And I don't think the Players Association is going to go against that. Establish a hard floor. You need to spend up to this amount of money. Otherwise, you're relegated into a different league. And you can't come back until you spend more, or you're not qualified for wild card spots. There could be punishments. There could be a lot of different ways to incentivize spending what you need to spend. And I'm not saying you need to spend Dodger money. I'm just saying that you need to be up to a certain standard so that you're giving your team and your players and your fan base the chance to win that they deserve. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. That greatly helps me, this video, and this channel. And one more thing, go down there and hit that subscribe button if you would. That way I can definitely see you back here next time.